Great. So, hello everybody, and welcome to this short webinar, which forms part of our Legal Employer Insight series, where we'll be covering some key career-focused hints, tips, and bits of content from a law firm employer perspective. And today we're going to be talking about assessment centres. My name is Rob Dudley, and I am the head of Employability and Engagement at BARBRI Law School. I'm delighted to be joined today by Jakob Sexton, who is the Early Careers Specialist at Brabners Law Firm. We hope you find this session useful as you navigate your way through your SQE journey into the legal profession. Jakob, thank you so much for joining us today and sparing the time to impart your expertise in this space.
Thank you for having me.
Not at all. Many of our students find themselves, of course, applying for training contracts, either whilst they're at university or during their SQE studies. And of course, they're also applying for other roles within the sector too. But an assessment centre tends to form part of the formalised sort of recruitment process for law firms. And I appreciate it varies, of course, from firm to firm, but just to help them understand it a little bit more broadly, I wondered if I could just start by asking you, I suppose, really just to outline the sort of typical structure of your assessment centre at Brabners.
Of course. So I think with assessment centres, they are pretty much somewhat similar no matter where you go. They'll all cross over in certain ways. R1 takes, like I said, it's very similar to the one. So it starts off with a written assessment. So what we're trying to get from candidates there is to see your attention to detail, essentially giving you a document and saying what's wrong with this, with lots of guide around it. But it's just things like spelling mistakes or missed instructions, for example. The next element is a group task. So at our firm, we do a negotiation exercise, which is always really, really fun. And we split you off into two teams. What we have is basically we give a different set of terms and you're negotiating against each other to come to conclusions. Focus there is really all about how you collaborate, how you work in a team, but also focusing on commercial awareness. Then we have an individual presentation. So this is where every candidate has 3 minutes to talk about anything they want to talk about. So we give you the freedom and the choice to go away and plan out a 3-minute presentation. There's no presentation or guide behind you. It's just you already presenting 3 minutes on a topic of your choice, and that is just so we can see your communication skills, and we just want to get to know you a little bit more, to be honest. And then we finish off the day with a strengths-based interview. So what this is basically just talking through your motivations and your skill sets to see if they align with the role. And then that's the full day. I know it sounds like a lot, but when you're in it, it is just one day, and it does fly by. Well, people seem to say that, whether they're, they mean it or not, that's different. But that's what the full day would look like.
Mikey, there's quite a few component parts there. And how do you, as employees of the law firm and being part of that assessment centre, how do you assess those candidates through those various activities?
So each part of it is to assess something different. So that's why we do the full whack of activities. As I mentioned, so with the written assessment, that's all about your attention to detail. So what we're doing there is, like I said, we're giving you a document that's a finished piece of work, and then we're also giving you the instructions as well that have been given to, let's say, the fee earner who made the piece of work. And that final document is basically riddled with errors. There's spelling problems, the instructions haven't been followed. It's a complete mess. It's your job to go, okay, here's what I was told to do. Why is this wrong? Why is this document wrong? So it's about your ability to pick out incorrect information. There's little minor mistakes that some people miss, but attention to detail is incredibly important for a career in law. So it's really important that we assess that as part of our day. The group task, the main focus there is all around commercial awareness. What we want to make sure that you can do is, okay, you can understand the law. We know you're probably academically quite bright by the time you get to us, whatever, but this is all about understanding what makes a business successful. So the fact pattern itself is nothing legal. It's just two companies. One's looking to buy a company, one's selling obviously for a certain reason, and they're just trying to negotiate the terms of that sale. And it's all just stuff that you would probably encounter in your daily life. It's just like normal people problems you might face, but we've readapted it into a commercial setting. And it's for you to be able to digest that fact pattern, understand it, then also come up with some really great arguments in the negotiation to kind of get your team where you want them to be in terms of that result for the client. So the main focus there is around, being able to understand the commercial information, talk about it, showcase that you do understand business success to a certain extent. But also, again, it's about collaboration. We want to see how you work in a team. How do you come together? How do you act together? Are you, naturally in the negotiation? I picked it also because sometimes candidates can get quite, I don't know the right word to use. It gets quite heated because you're trying to negotiate terms, and obviously the other side are pushing against you. So we're looking at how you work in a team, stay calm, measured, etc. Are you overbearing? Are you not saying anything? How are you participating? There's loads of things that we're kind of observing in that session, but those are the two main ones. The presentation is all about, it's oral communication. Can you stand there and deliver a presentation? What's your structure like? What kind of language are you using? What tone are you using? Are you speaking to us in loads of complex language about a topic we're never going to understand? And, it's all about speaking correctly to your audience, knowing what they might know. And it's just about how you deliver that in terms of, how you come across in that sense of how you communicate the information to us. Nothing about the topic you choose. I don't care what topic you choose, in all honesty, because it's about you. It's just about how you deliver that in the end goal. So that's really about oral communication. And then the final interview that's strength-based, like I said, it's about motivations, values alignment, and kind of what makes you tick in a certain sense. So we'll talk through different strengths related to the roles, whether that be growth mindset or how you're an effective communicator. And it's about making sure that you kind of not possess the strengths entirely, but you're on the right path, because we understand that people are going to come in, they're not going to be finished products. Completely get that. It's all about making sure that you somewhat understand, the importance of having a growth mindset and so forth. So yeah, the full day, it is a huge chunk and it is a lot to get through, but every single part has its different purpose for us to make sure that we're not like trying to assess every single skill using just one simple method, basically.
That's really helpful. I think it's really interesting, the types of skills and I suppose the qualities that you're trying to bring out in people and assess in people during that particular day. I just wondered as well whether you is there a particular sort of I don't know, formula that you use to help kind of differentiate people, because everybody's, I'm sure, performing at their best during this particular day. How do you sort of differentiate, I suppose, between candidates who are obviously coming to you with very similar academic backgrounds, for example?
Yeah, so I think these processes are really competitive. So by the point you get to the assessment center, like I say, everyone's probably got, they've probably got strong academics to a certain extent. Obviously, they're not the only thing we look for, but that will naturally be there. Then we have, everyone will have probably had the same amount of experiences. It is at that point, we always say it's like the fine points that we're looking for.
Yeah.
And it can be really, really difficult for us to pull out as assessors. So that's why we have, I guess, it's an extensive framework, because technically on paper, by that point, everyone in that room will be at the same level. So like you say, being able to look at these individual skill sets and strengths is how we really differentiate. Now, one thing that people think, though, is that they have to be a master at everything, in terms of they have to have the best attention to detail, the best oral and written communication, the best commercial awareness, but that's just never possible. I would be shocked if I ever met someone that like ticked every single point. So I guess the main thing is what we're looking for. We are looking for that difference at that point, because we want some people to be really good team workers, but we want some people to be really good at working independently. We want some people to be really commercially aware, but at the end of the day, in some teams in a law firm, it's not the most necessary thing that you need. If you work in family, for example, you don't need to know the ins and outs of what makes a business successful. But again, you need some kind of skill behind that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we look for the difference in skill sets throughout the day, and what we're trying to do is make a balance. So we don't want everyone to be the same, perfected. We're trying to look for that balance of people. Otherwise, everyone comes in, they can all work well in teams, and you go, right, now you need to work on your own on a project, and no one can do it. You've got a whole workforce that can't do a simple task on their own. You need everyone to kind of, be that way, have their own strengths, bring whatever they can to the table. So a very long-winded way of saying that we use every single part of the day to work out where people's strengths are, and then we go away and we try and make the balance from there.
Yeah, so you're assessing a real broad range, aren't you, overall? Just a very quick one from me in relation to that. I suppose a lot of students say, "Oh, well, I've got to be technically brilliant as well." Do you assess their technical ability?
Actually don't.
Do you not? Okay,
Which
interesting.
sounds bizarre, but the thing is technicality is something that we know we can teach. So,
Yeah.
you join a team, we'll teach you the technicality behind it. Because what you're going to need in terms of technicality in a private client seat versus maybe a corporate seat is completely different anyway. So the stuff that we can teach, we don't tend to assess on because I think that's what we're here for. As an employer, we're there to teach you the technicality down the line. At this point, we're just looking for people that are well-rounded in terms of their strengths. But again, nothing comes down to that technical ability. We don't even expect anyone to know anything about the law. Like, why would we? We will
Wow.
teach you that. We teach you the law, so we don't need you to know it. That's why none of our assessment centre focuses on legal ability. It's all just about strengths and skill sets, which people can, master from just being at university and getting involved in society or having a part-time job outside work. It's all the stuff that we would think that you would be able to kind of work on that we wouldn't necessarily be here to teach you. Obviously, we do help people with their skills as they go through the program, but the focus for us is obviously about the legal training. So,
Yeah.
no, we don't expect any technicalities, which is always interesting.
I'm sure many students will be surprised, but probably relieved by that. So thank you. Jakob, thanks for being so kind of candid about this process. It can be a bit of a pain point for a lot of people going through the recruitment process for firms. I wondered, just as a last question, whether you had, I don't know, some sort of takeaway that you would, or advice, I suppose, that you'd give to candidates who are currently going through or preparing for an assessment centre at the moment. Anything that you would impart?
Yeah, so I think the main thing is, well, for me, it's don't discount any of your experiences. We get a lot of people that interview with us, for example, that think they have to pull out the most impressive, crazy experiences to look like they're among, at the top. People will say try and stand out as much as you can. But actually, those experiences sometimes aren't the best. When we're asking you to talk about your skills and strengths, we want to hear about times where you've genuinely developed those skills and strengths. And I always say, I don't care if it's working in Sainsbury's part-time that you learn how to collaborate, then talk about that. It doesn't need to be the big fancy stuff that a lot of people don't have because it's just not always realistic or accessible.
Yeah.
So just look at yourself as a rounded individual and really consider what you're bringing in terms of any examples to interview. Don't just try and think about how you can like reword maybe not so great experiences that should sound impressive, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jakob. Really, really helpful advice. And thanks so much for your time.
Much.